You are really not even going to try to act like this matters, huh? Our anniversary is tomorrow. Jessica stood in the doorway, leaning just slightly to one side. Her suitcase stood straight beside her, like it was waiting patiently for the next move. She had this little smirk on her face, the kind that always hit me harder than any shouting match ever could. "Oh, come on," she said, rolling her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "You will be fine for one weekend without me. It is just a trip with the girls, Liam, not a military mission." I let out a dry laugh, but there was no humor behind it. "Funny," I said, "because from where I'm standing, it feels like you're walking away from the battlefield." She let out one of those big, heavy sighs, like just staying married to me was too much work. "I told you last week. Lacey, Tasha, and I are going to Vermont. Do not act like I dropped a bomb on you." "Yeah, you told me," I replied, stepping closer. "You did not ask. You did not invite. You just stated it like you were reading off the back of a cereal box. No, how do you feel about this?" "Just dropped it and moved on." She tapped her nails on the suitcase handle, steady and sharp, like a metronome ticking towards something final. "Because I knew you'd blow it up into a big deal." "A big deal?" My voice cracked, anger building in my chest like a pressure cooker. "You mean like me actually giving a damn? You mean like thinking our anniversary still means something?" She shrugged like she was brushing off something that did not matter. "It is just a date, Liam. Do not act like I just slapped your mother in the face." That one hit hard. I flinched without meaning to. Before I could say anything else, she spun on her heels and started walking down the hallway of our apartment. Her footsteps echoed, each one sharp like a judge's gavel, pounding out the final decision. I did not chase after her. I did not call her name. I just stood there, heart thudding, eyes locked on her figure as it disappeared into the elevator. When the doors finally slid shut behind her, I swear the walls around me let out a breath, but not one of relief. More like grief. The hallway light above me flickered, throwing weird shadows across the floor. I stared at the patterns for a long time until my breathing slowed and the heat in my chest cooled into something heavier. Not rage, not sadness. Something like disbelief. Like waking up to a reality I had been ignoring. This was not just a selfish moment. This was Jessica drawing a line in the sand, and me finally realizing it had been there for a while. Back inside, the apartment looked the same, but it did not feel like it. The throw blanket was still draped neatly over the armrest of the couch. The air still held a faint smell of last night's garlic takeout. The picture of us at Cannon Beach smiled down from the wall, frozen in a memory that felt fake now. I moved without thinking. Shut the door. Locked it. Turned off the hallway light. In the kitchen, I rinsed out the coffee mug I had barely touched that morning. 2 sips, maybe. That was pretty much my life. Routine, reliable, plain. I teach 8th grade history at a public school that still has the same faded paint from the 1980s. My sneakers are worn down from walking the same rows of desks day after day. My lesson plans are all color-coded. The kids like me. The parents deal with me. And I am good at the job. Not exciting. Not bold. But solid. At some point, Jessica stopped seeing that as enough. I leaned against the counter with my arms crossed, staring at the door she had just walked out of. I was not crying, not even close, but my hands were shaking a little. Because deep down, I knew this night was not like the others. This was not her just needing space. This was something else. It felt like Jessica had already stepped into another life, a place where I no longer existed. Not even as a memory. And maybe she figured I would just stay here, quiet and still, like some forgotten photo in a dusty drawer, while she painted a fresh coat over everything we were. But that is where she got me wrong. I do not sit still in the middle of a fire. I have learned how to walk through it. And if you think this is where the story ends, then you really do not know me at all. The following evening, I found myself at a place called Mercer's. It was a little lakeside bar squeezed between an old marina and a bait shop. The kind of bar where the beer always came in glass bottles and no one ever asked what the wireless password was. I sat wedged between Jonah, my oldest friend, and his younger brother, Tyler. We had all grown up together since high school. They were deep in conversation, going on about the New York Yankees pitching rotation like it was gospel. Tyler said Schmidt did not have the endurance to close out the late innings, while Jonah threw back with stats from last season's playoffs. They were full of energy, cracking jokes, tossing back nachos like life was easy. They did not have anything heavy weighing them down, nothing like the knot I had in my chest. I managed a few fake laughs, nodded when I was supposed to, even lifted my beer when they toasted to surviving another week in this American life. But honestly, I was not all there. My eyes kept drifting to the lake through the bar window. It looked endless out there, dark and still. The moon left this long, silver streak across the surface, like a scar that had never healed. "You all right, man?" Jonah asked, leaning closer once Tyler headed off to the restroom. I blinked and turned toward him. "Yeah, just tired. It has been a long week." He did not push it. That was one of the things I appreciated most about Jonah. He never forced a conversation. He just let things sit. If I wanted to talk, he was there. And if I did not, he was still there. Jessica had not texted me. Not a single word since the night she walked out. No check-in. No, we made it. No pictures of their resort or some goofy photo of her and the girls holding drinks by the pool. Nothing. Just silence. And I should have been mad. Maybe even thankful. But what I felt was harder to pin down. It was not like she had gone quiet. It felt like she had planned this silence. Like it was her way of making me squirm, letting my mind race with what kind of swimsuits Tasha brought or which strangers Jessica might be flirting with at the hotel bar. That was classic Jessica. Pull away, leave a blank space, and wait for me to fill it with guilt. But something about tonight, it felt different. I took slow sips from my bottle, watching the droplets roll down the glass like time itself was slipping away and did not care. My mind started drifting to small things. The way Jessica used to hum while brushing her teeth. The way her perfume lingered on our pillowcases. How she would drown her tea in lemon, way more than anyone should. And here's the strange thing, I did not really miss her. Not the way I thought I would. What I missed was the version of her I used to believe in. That quiet thought settled in me like a warm jacket on a cold bench. I was not grieving her being gone. I was starting to learn who I was without her. And it did not feel empty. Not completely. Later that night, I stood outside Mercer's, letting the breeze off the lake cool my face. The noise from inside, laughter, music, clinking bottles, it faded behind me. I could hear the soft sound of water hitting the dock, steady and calm. Jonah had offered to drive me home, but I waved him off. I needed the walk. The sky above Mercer Bay was wide and open, the stars sharp and bold. I shoved my hands in my jacket pockets and looked up at them. I did not know why, but they felt more honest than anything Jessica had said to me in months. Maybe because they were just there. Not pretending, not explaining, just shining. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Instinct kicked in, and I grabbed it, already expecting her name to pop up. But it was not her. Just some text about a discount on contact lenses I never ordered. I was not sure if I should laugh or be offended. Still, I found myself opening our message thread. Still nothing. Blank. No new messages. No check-ins. Just that last conversation from 2 days back, where she reminded me to pick up almond milk. That was it. Out of everything we had shared, our final exchange, at least for now, was about almond milk. That thought stung worse than I wanted to admit. I slid my phone back into my coat pocket and kept walking, each step pulling me deeper into the kind of thought I had not dared let myself entertain until now. What if this was not a break? What if this was the beginning of something else entirely? When I finally got home, I should have gone straight to bed. But instead, I wandered through our apartment like I was a guest in someone else's life. I noticed things I usually passed right by. A wine glass still sitting in the sink, not rinsed. Her sandals kicked off by the front door like she had just come in a minute ago. The faint scent of her floral shampoo still clinging to the air in the bathroom. It was eerie, how present she still felt, even from miles away. Her absence did not feel quiet. It was loud. It shouted through every corner of the apartment. I sat down on the edge of our bed, phone in hand, thumb hovering over her name. The last time we talked on the phone was 3 days ago. The last real conversation? Probably even longer. I told myself I was only thinking of calling to check in. Not because I missed her. Not because I was worried. Just because. I hit the call button. The first ring sounded normal. The second made my chest tighten. By the fourth, I already knew it was going to voicemail. "Hey, this is Jessica. You know what to do." Beep. I did not leave a message. I just ended the call. 30 minutes later, I called again. Same thing. Then again. And again. Still nothing. I would not say I was panicking. Not quite. But that space between worry and anger is a razor-thin line, and I was walking it barefoot. I sent her a message, just checking in. "Let me know you are all right." It sat there. No, delivered. No read receipt. No reply. I stared at the blinking cursor for a while, then turned off the screen and tossed the phone onto her pillow. That part hit me the hardest, I think. The silence. The refusal to even pretend she cared how any of this was affecting me. Jessica had always had a way of picking the worst timing. That was nothing new. But this felt different, deliberate. Like she was counting the seconds, knowing exactly when I would crack. I lay back on the bed and stared up at the ceiling fan as it turned slow and steady above me. The soft hum filled the room, but it did not bring any peace. It just sounded like a timer, ticking down towards something I never agreed to. My thoughts would not let up. They kept circling the same questions. Who was she with? Why was she ignoring me? Had this been her plan all along? The ceiling, though still and blank, felt like it had secrets to tell if I listened long enough. The shadows kept shifting across the paint. One looked like her standing by the door. Another like she was curled up on the couch, arms crossed, unreadable expression on her face. I rolled onto my side, hoping sleep would pull me down. It did not. Every creak in the walls felt louder than usual. Every car horn in the distance felt like a call I had missed. Even the sheets, normally cool and familiar, felt like they belonged to someone else. Foreign. Cold. I rolled to her side of the bed and buried my face in her pillow. It smelled like her. That soft amber scent she always said was just interesting enough to notice. She had a way of making even her perfume sound poetic. But lying there, surrounded by that smell, it did not comfort me. It burned. Because for all the years I had been steady, kind, present, this was what I got in return. A voicemail greeting. A blank message thread. A pillow that smelled like someone who could not be bothered to say goodnight. Around 3:14 in the morning, I sat up suddenly. I kicked the covers off and walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, stared at nothing, then went back to bed and stared at the ceiling again. Somewhere between the fifth and sixth time I tried not to cry, I felt it. Not a breakdown, not a dramatic moment, just a quiet shift inside me, like something in my soul moved a little closer to the truth I had been avoiding. She was not missing. She was leaving, and I needed to stop chasing footsteps that had already faded down the hall. Our anniversary fell on a Saturday that year. One of those warm July evenings where the sun does not sink until well after 8, and the sky turns soft, like the inside of a ripe peach. I had not planned on going anywhere that night, but around 5 o'clock, Jonah sent me a text. Said a few people were grilling at his place by the lake. I figured, why not? Better than sitting alone in the dark, waiting for a message that was never going to come. The backyard was buzzing when I arrived. Soft music playing, people laughing, paper plates loaded down with burgers and potato salad. The smell of grilled corn floated through the air, warm and familiar. I tried to take it all in, tried to feel like I was part of it, maybe even grateful. But it was like I was watching the whole thing happen through a window. Everyone's laughter sounded distant, like it belonged to a room I was not in. Then I heard her name. Jessica. I turned my head without meaning to. A woman I barely recognized, Ava, I think, was standing by the cooler, scrolling through her phone. She glanced over at another girl and said, I did not know she was seeing someone new, then tilted her phone to show her screen. Wait, Jessica? I asked, voice sharper than I intended. Jessica who? She looked up. Jessica Shaw. She is up at that resort in Killington. With some guy? I just figured you two had split. Before I could think it through, I stepped closer. Can I see that? She blinked, a little caught off guard, but handed me the phone. It was an Instagram story, just one of those 10-second clips, looping over and over. Jessica, hair loose, shoulders kissed by the sun, a drink in her hand. Laughing. Not just laughing. Leaning in toward a guy I had never seen before. Her fingers slid across his chest like she had done it 100 times. He leaned down, whispered something in her ear. She smiled. No, smirked. Then came the last part. Jessica blew a kiss at the camera. His hand was on her waist. The caption read, Guess who found vacation company? My chest went tight, like something sharp had just been jammed between my ribs. And right at that moment, fireworks started bursting over the lake. Big, wild explosions of red and gold filled the sky. People turned to watch, their faces glowing in the light. But I could not look up, because right there, on that screen, was something Jessica had never left before. Proof. Not vague silence. Not a text you could twist. Just her, clear as day, choosing someone else and broadcasting it to the world. Everyone, that is, except me. I handed the phone back, wordless. Ava gave me a small, awkward look. I thought you knew. I am sorry. I nodded, swallowed the bitter taste in my mouth, and stepped away. I walked until the voices faded behind me, until the lights from the party were just a glow in the distance. When I reached the edge of the lake, I stood still in the dark. Behind me, fireworks cracked through the sky like a crowd cheering for someone else's victory. It was our anniversary, and she was somewhere else, with someone else. It did not feel like heartbreak anymore. It felt like a choice, and that would be the last thing I ever accepted from her. Sunday morning rolled in slow and gray, the kind of morning where everything feels like it is dragging its feet. Even the city seemed like it was trying to stay asleep, but I was already wide awake. There was no anger left in me. Not anymore. Something colder had crept in overnight, like frost crawling over feelings I had carried too long. I was not pacing. I was not yelling. I was just calm, and I knew what I had to do. By 9:30, I was sitting in a midtown office across from a woman named Carla McKay. Divorce attorney. Neat desk, 2 leather chairs, and about as much warmth as a waiting room. She was fast and professional. Kind, but no nonsense. Asked the right questions. Never flinched when I said, "She is cheating." I wanted over quickly. Carla offered me a glass of water. I declined. Her pen moved across the paperwork with practiced ease. Do you have access to her social media? Screenshots can help. Anything that shows location or intimacy, just to be safe. I slid my phone across the table. Start with the story she posted last night. It is public. She tapped through the screen, nodded quietly, and kept working. There was something strange, almost peaceful, about it. Watching this entire part of my life reduced to sections and lines. Assets. Shared accounts. The apartment lease. No feelings. No memories. Just facts and paperwork. I signed where she pointed. By the time I walked out of Carla's office, the clouds had started to break. The sun was trying its best, still faint, still unsure, but it was there. I chose not to take the subway home. I needed the walk, the movement, a little bit of quiet time to sort through everything in my head. Back at the apartment, I made a fresh pot of coffee. The smell filled the place like armor. For years, that had been our weekend ritual, pajamas, morning light, both of us reaching for the sugar jar at the same time. But now, it was mine. I sat down at the kitchen table with my mug in hand. Carla's documents, already printed, were stacked neatly beside me. The apartment was silent, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. It was in that silence that something finally clicked. This was never about payback. It was about taking back the space I had slowly shrunk myself to fit inside. Jessica had not just cheated. She had rewritten the entire story of who we were. And somewhere along the way, I let her. All the eye rolls, the dismissive sighs, the vague apologies that never really meant anything. They had chipped away at what I thought was solid between us. But now I could see it clearly. I was not broken. I had just stopped pretending she had not already broken something in me. My phone buzzed once on the counter. A work message. I ignored it. I took another long sip of coffee, watching the steam rise from the mug like smoke from a fire that had already burned itself out. That was the thing. Jessica thought I would fall to pieces, that her silence would keep me stuck. But silence is just space. And now I was learning how to fill that space again. I waited until late in the afternoon, not because I was unsure. That part of me was already gone, burned away somewhere between the moment I saw that Instagram video and the signature I left on the divorce papers now sitting in a sealed envelope on the coffee table. I waited because I knew Jessica's friend, Lacey, would answer then. She always posted brunch photos around noon and settled into her Sunday routine after that. Wine, television reruns, and sending relationship advice nobody asked for in her group chats. So I called her. The phone only rang twice before her voice came on. Light and easy, like nothing in the world was wrong. "Lacey," I said without delay. "It's Liam." There was a pause. Just a second. Her tone shifted ever so slightly. "Oh, hey, what is going on?" "I need a favor," I said, keeping my voice level. Slow. Steady. "Next time Jessica reaches out, if she does, can you let her know the divorce process has started? The paperwork is already filed. That is all." Silence. A long stretch of it. When Lacey spoke again, her voice sounded unsure, like she had suddenly realized the ground beneath her feet was not as solid as she thought. "Wait. What? Are you serious?" "I am. You are divorcing her? But I thought you two were." "We are not," I said, cutting in gently. We have not been. Not for a long time. I could hear her breathe in sharply. Does she know? No, I said. But she will. I heard movement on her end, probably pacing or getting away from whoever was nearby. I mean, I do not want to get pulled into all this. But Liam, this is a lot. Maybe you should wait until she is home. Talk face to face. I did wait, I told her. Through the lying. Through the silence. Through the way she talked down to me. This is not sudden, Lacey. It is just finally happening. She did not respond right away. And in that silence, something settled inside me. It was not anger, not pain, just a clear, weightless feeling, like I had finally stepped out of a fog. I am not asking you to explain it, I added. Just pass along the message. She deserves to know where things stand. Lacey's voice came back, thinner than before. Okay, I will tell her. Thank you. I hung up before she could say anything else. Then I set the phone down, let out a long breath, and poured the last of my coffee into the sink. It felt like closing a chapter, draining the last cold drops of something that used to be warm. Outside, the city had started lighting up one window at a time. The kind of slow flicker that told you night was coming whether you were ready or not. A soft breeze drifted in through the cracked kitchen window, stirring the old takeout menu still stuck to the fridge with a magnet from some trip I could no longer remember. I should have felt unsettled, shaken, but I did not. What I felt was ready. I pictured Lacey's face as she gave Jessica the news. I imagined Jessica on the other end of the line, wrapped in some plush hotel robe, sipping something fruity and pointless, probably laughing at some joke she'd barely heard. Until that moment her smile dropped. Mid-sip, mid-lie. I wondered how fast she would try to call me. I wondered if she would even bother making something up. But I was not bracing for it anymore. I was not standing there rehearsing responses or building walls for the guilt she always threw my way. I had said what needed to be said. And for once, I was not opening the door for edits. 15 minutes after the call to Lacey, my phone lit up on the counter. Her name flashed across the screen like a flare. Jessica. The calls came in waves. Some right after the other. Some with small gaps in between, like she was trying to calm herself, regroup. But I knew the rhythm by now. I knew the panic behind it. The way her grip on control slipped silently through her fingers when things did not bend her way. I did not answer. I stood by the kitchen window with a mug of peppermint tea, letting the steam float up across my face like smoke from a fire I had already walked through. The view was nothing special. Cars inching along 12th Street, brake lights stretching far into the distance. But somehow it looked wider than it used to, like I had opened a window inside myself, and something old had finally flown out. Another buzz. Jessica never gave up easily. Then came the texts. 3 in a row. Jessica. Liam, what is going on? Jessica. Lacey said something crazy. Please call me. Jessica. This is not funny. I did not reply. I just took another slow sip. The flavor was clean. Sharp. Simple. That was what I wanted now. Clarity. Straight lines. Words that meant something. No more blurred truths. No more guilt twisted into apologies. The phone rang again. The sound vibrated through the countertop, loud and jarring, like an alarm that had long outlived its purpose. I let it ring. Instead, I watched the horizon, where steel and sky touched. Somewhere out there, in thousands of apartments just like mine, people were living, laughing, starting over. That thought stuck with me, starting over. Because until that moment, I had not really believed I was doing it. I had just been reacting, surviving. But standing there in that stillness, I felt something shift. It was not about Jessica anymore. It was about me. Control, not over her, but over myself. Another call. Same name. I leaned my shoulder into the window frame, glass cool against my arm. My breath left a fog on the pane. There was something poetic about it all. All those years she had ended conversations before they were finished, walked out mid-argument like silence gave her the final word. But now I was the one who disappeared. Not to be cruel, but because peace was finally more valuable than engagement. I did not owe her my attention anymore. Not after everything I had seen. Not after all the months of indifference, the manipulation, the way I had started to feel invisible in my own home. The screen went dark again, and the silence that followed, it was beautiful. I stayed by that window for over an hour. The tea went cold. The sky faded to night. My reflection in the glass grew darker, fuzzier, like the version of me that had waited for her was starting to dissolve. By the time I reached for the phone and turned off the ringer, I was not angry. I was finished. I barely slept that night. Not out of worry, though. That feeling had passed. What remained was quieter, colder, like standing in the aftermath of a storm, just surveying what was left. Morning came slow. The sunlight crept through the blinds in soft golden stripes. I made coffee the way I always did. 2 scoops, no sugar, and sat by the kitchen window again. The city felt hushed, like even it understood something had changed. The traffic moved differently, more thoughtful, like it knew. The phone was still face down where I left it. Quiet. Had not buzzed in hours, not since just after midnight. But I knew the moment was coming. And at exactly 8:17 in the morning, it lit up again. Jessica. I let it ring twice. Long enough for her to think I might ignore her again. Then I answered. Liam, I said. Her voice came through, cracked and raw, like a dam finally breaking. What? What is going on? Are you actually doing this? She was crying. I could not tell if the tears were real or just another act in a play she had performed before. And honestly, I did not care. I don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. What did I do that was so unforgivable that you could not even talk to me first? I took a slow sip of my coffee before answering. You will find out in court. Silence followed. Heavy. Total. Then came a laugh, but not the kind that came from joy. Not even the bitter kind. It sounded thin, like glass bending just before it breaks. You are not serious, she whispered. This is insane. We are just having a rough patch, Liam. That is all this is. I said nothing. She kept going. Okay, yes. I went on a trip. Maybe I needed a little space. But a weekend away with friends, and you think that means it is over? There was a man in your video, Jessica, I said calmly. His hand was on your waist. You looked right into the camera, lips puckered, like you were single. You tagged the resort publicly. She stammered. That was nothing. It was just a joke. A dumb inside joke with the girls. That guy? He is nobody. A bartender. I barely spoke to him. You leaned into him, I said. You smiled like it was some kind of game. You knew exactly how that post would look, and you posted it anyway. I did not think you would see it, she blurted out, then immediately tried to backpedal. I didn't mean anything by it. Exactly, I said. That slip, that was the truth. She never thought I would find out. Or maybe she hoped I would and assumed I would break down, come crawling, desperate to fix what she broke. But not this time. Not silence. Not divorce. Not strength without noise. I have already signed the paperwork, I told her. You will get it this week. My attorney has your updated address. Liam, wait. I did wait. I said, sharper now, my first crack in the calm. I waited while you stopped coming home on time. While you stopped showing up for conversations, for dinners, for me. I waited while you turned our marriage into a performance. I gave you every chance to be honest. Every single one. She was crying now. Not the silent kind, either. This was the full-body sob, the one she usually saved for sad movies or arguments where she knew she was losing. I don't want to lose you, she whispered. You already did. The line went quiet again, like those 4 words had knocked the breath out of her. I can change, she said. I will come home. We can talk. Please, do not end it like this. We have built a life together, Liam. No, I said. I built a life. You treated it like a lease. That was when she broke completely. I could hear it in the way her breath hitched, in that raw gasp that came from a place far deeper than shame. The performance was done. The stage lights were off. The curtain had fallen, and she was standing there alone. I do not know what to do, she said, barely audible. That is not my problem anymore. I ended the call. Then I set the phone down gently, turned toward the sunrise coming through the window, and finished the last of my coffee. And for the first time in what felt like forever, it did not taste bitter. I had not expected to see her again. Ava, the woman who had shown me Jessica's video at Jonah's barbecue. I could barely recall her face at the time. The second I saw that screen, everything else faded. But a few days later, I was walking past this little cafe off 7th and Broome. A quiet spot with ivy-covered windows and mismatched chairs scattered out front. There she was, sitting by herself at the window, sipping from a pale ceramic mug. Something about her looked still, peaceful. She glanced up just as I passed. For a second, neither of us said a word. Then she lifted her hand in a small wave. I do not know why I walked in. Maybe I just needed a different kind of silence. One that did not echo so much. Hey, I said as I approached. Ava smiled. Not out of politeness. Genuine. The kind of smile people give when they have nothing to prove. Hey, Liam. I motioned toward the empty chair across from her. Mind if I sit? Only if you are okay sharing a table with terrible scones, she said, pushing one half-eaten toward the edge of her plate. Try it, if you are into chalk. And I laughed, really laughed. It felt different, in a good way. I ordered a black coffee, passed on the scone, and took the seat across from Ava. There was no tension, no awkwardness. Just the soft hum of the espresso machine behind the counter and the occasional sound of dishes clinking in the back. We started off talking about Jonah, about how he still had no idea how to host, how his playlist seemed frozen in time. 2012, maybe earlier. It felt easy, natural. Then Ava leaned back slightly, that same calm look from the party still in her eyes. I did not mean to drop that bomb on you the other night, she said gently. I shrugged. You didn't. You just lit the fuse. She smiled, but her eyes stayed serious. She posted that knowing people would see it. Ava said. Part of her probably hoped someone would bring it to you. Yeah, I nodded. But she did not expect silence in return. Ava gave a slow nod, letting that truth linger for a moment before she stirred her tea. I know how it feels, she said quietly. Waking up one day and realizing someone's been drifting away from you for a long time. And you were the last one to notice. I looked at her then. That was not something people say lightly. You've been through it. She nodded. 3 years ago. My ex-husband. Different situation, same kind of emptiness at the end. I wanted to ask more. But she left it there, and I respected that. Some stories are best left folded. Thanks, I said finally. For telling me that. For not looking at me like I am something sad. Ava tilted her head a little. You don't seem like a tragedy, Liam. You look like someone who just took his first real breath in a while. That caught me off guard. I didn't say anything at first. Just took a slow sip of my coffee and let her words sink in. Maybe she was right. The pain had not vanished, but it was no longer the center of my world. There was room now for something else. We sat together for a while longer. The conversation drifted in and out without pressure. No games. No false fronts. Just simple, honest talk. And after months of manipulation and fog, that kind of honesty felt like gold. Just before we stood to leave, Ava pulled out a small notebook from her bag and scribbled something down. My number, she said, sliding the paper toward me. Not because I expect anything. Just in case you ever need someone who saw the truth with her own eyes. I looked at the number, then up at her. Thank you. That means more than you probably know. She gave me one last smile, softer this time. I've got time, Liam. Take all of yours. When I stepped back onto the sidewalk, the world did not look as sharp anymore. The sky was still gray, and the city still loud, but something inside me had shifted. For the first time in a while, it did not feel like an ending. It felt like something was beginning. I got to the courthouse early. Not because I was nervous. That feeling had burned out long ago. I just needed the quiet. There is something sacred about being early. About entering a space before anyone else can fill it with noise and energy. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Pale wood panels, high ceilings, bright lights that washed everything into muted gray. Carla, my attorney, sat beside me. Sharp, focused, calm. She looked through the documents one last time, even though she had already reviewed them more than enough. She did not say much, and I liked that about her. At 9:01, the doors creaked open. Jessica walked in. I did not recognize her at first. Her hair, usually neat and perfectly styled, was pulled back in a messy bun. Loose strands fell around her face like she had rushed to get ready. Her makeup looked uneven, like it had been applied in the middle of crying. The navy dress she wore was wrinkled. She clutched her purse tightly, like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. She was not wearing her wedding ring. I did not feel victorious. I felt removed. She paused when she saw me. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, maybe say my name, maybe ask for one last moment. But the bailiff gestured toward her side of the room, and she nodded stiffly, walking past without a word. A few minutes later, the judge entered. She was older, with clear eyes and a tone that sliced through the room like a scalpel. What followed was mechanical. Carla spoke first, clearly and professionally. She laid out the timeline, dates, text messages, travel records. Without any fanfare, Carla displayed the Instagram story on the courtroom monitor. She froze it at the worst possible frame. Jessica leaning in close to that man, drink in hand, her eyes soft and flirtatious. Jessica flinched. I watched the realization crawl across her face. This was no longer just a careless post. It was now evidence, official, permanent, undeniable. Her lawyer raised an objection, saying the clip lacked proper context. The judge arched an eyebrow. The caption says, "Vacation company," followed by a kiss emoji. I believe the context is quite clear. Jessica's shoulders sank. This was not her kind of stage. No flattering lights. No filters. No way to spin it into something poetic or dramatic. This was hardwood and legal phrasing. This was receipts and consequences. And her composure started to slip again when Carla mentioned the date of the post. Our anniversary. That was when I looked at her, really looked. She did not look mad. She looked small, like someone who had spent years building herself on borrowed confidence and now realized the foundation was gone. I did not gloat. I did not smile. I just breathed. And for the first time in years, I did not feel the weight of guilt pressing down on my chest. The hearing was nearly over. Just a few signatures left. A final exchange between the lawyers. The judge gave a sharp nod to signal the end. It was all formality now. The damage had been cataloged, documented, and filed away. But Jessica was not done. Just as the judge began gathering her notes, Jessica stood up suddenly. "Wait," she said, her voice cracking across the quiet room. "Please, Your Honor. Just a moment." The judge looked up, cautious. "You've already had the chance to speak through your attorney." "I know," Jessica said, but her eyes were locked on me. "But I need to speak to him directly." I did not move. My face stayed still. My hands were folded in my lap, tight. Jessica stepped toward the center of the courtroom. Her tears this time real. There was no performance in them. Just something raw, worn down. "Liam," she began, her voice unsteady. "I made mistakes. I shut you out. I see that now." I stayed seated. She went on, speaking quickly, like she was racing to say everything before the door slammed shut. "I lost myself. I drifted. I thought I needed space, freedom, but none of it meant anything if it cost me you. I didn't mean to hurt you." Still, I said nothing. "You were the only thing that ever felt real," she whispered. "And I know I don't deserve it. But if even a piece of you remembers who we were, please, please give me another chance. I'll do anything." The room was silent. Completely. The clerk, the bailiff, even the judge had paused her pen mid-signature. I stood, and next to me, Ava rose as well. She had slipped in quietly halfway through the hearing, just like she had said she might. She did not say a word. She did not have to. When she reached for my hand, I did not hesitate. I took it, and together, we walked out. Past Jessica, past the gasping breath she let out behind us. A sound that, once upon a time, might have broken me. But now, it was just an echo. We pushed open the heavy courtroom doors. And when they shut behind us, I did not turn around. I did not need to. That chapter was over. Not with a bang. Not with shouting. But with silence. The kind that has real power. Outside, sunlight broke through the last of the clouds, spilling over the courthouse steps in wide, warm beams. Honest light. Ava gave my hand a small squeeze, then let go. "You all right?" she asked. I drew in a slow breath. "I will be." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it.